Mercedes are having a very promising run into the 2024 F1 season. Toto Wolff signed a 3-year contract extension, keeping him at the team till 2026, and everything we're hearing about the new car is incredibly positive. The question everyone wants to know the answer to, though, is whether or not it'll be able to challenge for a world title. Or is it all just hot air and false promises? Today, I'll check out what the team has been saying about the 2024 car, so don't go anywhere. Toto Wolff recently announced that he's given himself a new 3-year contract to stay as team principal with the Mercedes F1 team. Wolff owns a third of the team, so unless he had a big falling out with the two other equal part owners, Ineos and Mercedes, he was never going to leave. His competence as team principal aside, Wolff just loves racing, and while he remains a part owner of the team, it's unlikely he'll ever leave the Mercedes garage. So, for better or for worse, the team will be led again this season by Wolff as they aim to bounce back from 2 years of flawed design and development. After 8 straight seasons as F1's Constructors' champions, their failure to mount a title challenge in 2022 hit the team hard. Their design philosophy for the new ground effect regulations must have been flawed from very early on, possibly a year or more before we even saw the cars, which led to a car concept that just didn't work. The W13 and W14, with their distinctive zero pods, were theoretically good cars according to Mercedes, but what they saw in their simulations never matched up with what happened on track. The potential for porpoising was missed by pretty much all the teams, with only McLaren and Red Bull appearing to avoid the worst of it. While the porpoising was definitely a huge part of Mercedes' problems, it was only a symptom of a much larger issue. The car would only work optimally within a certain ride height window, and that window was just far too low. Mercedes could never get their car as close to the ground as they could in their simulations, because when they tried, they started porpoising. But the team has admitted to their mistakes, though it wasn't that long ago that Lewis Hamilton was saying, "My team don't make mistakes." Acknowledging those mistakes has allowed the team to break free from their flawed car and start anew this season. Mercedes technical director, James Allison, says changes in the team's processes following 2 disappointing campaigns will result in a different-looking car for the 2024 Formula 1 season. While explaining what he believes are common misconceptions around the phrase concept, Allison revealed the process that is likely to lead Mercedes' 2024 Challenger to look significantly different to its predecessors. To the mind of a designer or a performance person in F1, concept is actually nothing to do with the car, he told Sky Sports F1. It's about a process by which you decide what good looks like and what bad looks like. It's your methodology for sort of sieving out all of the many things you might put on the car and finding only the ones that you really think are going to add lap time. It's method. The car itself is just the output of that method. So when you talk to us about concept, we're hearing, "What? You think our wind tunnel weighting system wasn't right?" And we have changed that. Or our way of meshing in CFD was wrong, and we've changed the concept of that. Mercedes have openly admitted that things went wrong in the wind tunnel and CFD testing of the 2022 and 2023 car. One rumor that came from within the Mercedes team was that they had made wind tunnel parts to an incorrect scale during the development process, which completely invalidated a huge amount of their testing data. The wind tunnel at Brackley is also one of the older ones in the sport now, and stories of the engineers complaining about it have appeared quite a few times over the past 5-ish years. James Allison continued by saying, "Of course, the last 2 years have required us to adjust our approach and methodology, our concept if you will, and as a result of that, the hardware that pops out the far side of that will necessarily be different, because it's defined by different decisions and different weightings of what's important and what isn't." This statement is interesting and gives us an insight into what Mercedes are doing this off-season. Toto Wolff has said that he isn't so proud that his team wouldn't copy Red Bull if that was what they thought was best. No one thought they would actually just field the RB19, but if they can match their concept, which according to Allison is their decision-making process, to Red Bull's concept, then they might be able to start playing catch-up with the team to beat. We will have to wait until Valentine's Day to see what Mercedes' new decision-making process has produced, but Toto Wolff has given an indication of what we should expect from the car's performance. The Mercedes boss has explained what Anthony Davidson has told him about the 2024 car after working with it on the simulator. With testing limited to 3 days before the first race weekend of the season, getting the car right in the simulator is essential to starting off on the front foot. Sharing what Davidson told him on a phone call about the car, Wolff said, "He was driving Melbourne in the sim, and he said, 'The car feels like a car for the first time in 2 years.'" Obviously, I would love this to correlate to the track, but we've seen in the last 2 years that this was not always the case. Toto Wolff recently said that he's never been optimistic about anything in his life, and he's holding true to that with this statement. But the car feeling like a car again is a great sign for Mercedes fans. A massive problem that the Mercedes drivers have been facing for the past 2 years is the unpredictability of their cars, something that is again a symptom of their setup window being far too narrow. If the car that hits the track matches up to what Anthony Davidson has driven in the simulator, then it should be much more predictable, which will allow Russell and Hamilton to push much harder. If that is the case, then we could see Hamilton returning to his best in 2024. But catching Red Bull is going to require more than just a predictable car. Wolff also compared beating Red Bull during the current rule cycle that ends in 2025 to climbing Mount Everest and against the odds. However, he is steadfast in his belief that F1's current world champions can be beaten. "Always believe it's possible," he added. You cannot start the season with an attitude of "this is not going to be possible." Highlighting the dramatic improvement from McLaren in 2023, Wolff believes that Mercedes can make a similar step. We saw last year with McLaren what a huge step they made with a single upgrade. We've signed a 2-year deal with Lewis, and we owe it to him, to George, and to all the team to give it our full attention in 2024 and 2025. I think it's possible. He also hopes to make gains in pit stops, an area that McLaren and Red Bull raised their game in. He teased that Mercedes stops will be very different in 2024, stating an overhaul in all areas, not just the car. "I think the regulations, how they were laid out a few years ago, we interpreted them in a very conservative way," he added. "And we've seen other teams doing it differently. So watch this space. I think it's going to be very different." Toto said late on in the 2023 season that he preferred his team to not be slow, rather than be as fast as their competitors. While that play-it-safe strategy worked when Mercedes had by far the fastest car on the grid, they're now losing seconds of time every race with pedestrian pit stops. To try and turn this around, the 8-time Constructors' Champions have invested in areas such as wheel locking mechanisms and axle materials to nail this crucial area for F1 success. All of this positivity around Mercedes is going to increase the pressure on them for the coming season though. With Hamilton still at the team, they are the most supported team on the grid, and those fans will have high expectations. To add to that, the other team principals have started piling on the pressure as well. Zak Brown has said that he believes that Mercedes and Ferrari are the two outfits that could close the gap to Red Bull, and that means Lewis Hamilton might be up alongside Max Verstappen this year. It would be a surprise if Mercedes suddenly went from an inconsistent second best to a title challenger, but as McLaren themselves proved last year, big strides are possible in a short period of time. Speaking ahead of next season, Brown said, "At the same time, Mercedes, Ferrari, these teams have everything they need and they're great teams. I wouldn't be surprised if we're sitting here and all of a sudden Mercedes was back to Lewis Hamilton winning his 8th championship. So it's very tough and competitive now." Zak might just be trying to deflect attention from his own team, who outscored everyone in the second half of 2023, but it will nonetheless add pressure to Mercedes ahead of the season-opening Bahrain Grand Prix. What do you think of Mercedes changing their processes to try and improve the car? And do you think Mercedes having a car that feels like a proper race car is an encouraging sign for next season? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.